Hi guys, welcome to our daily encounter. In 2 Samuel 23, we find what's called David's last words. And it probably wasn't literally his last words, probably more along the lines of his last song, his last psalm that he wrote. David was definitely a man who wrote beautiful poetry, beautiful songs that could be sung for worship to God, but also for personal contemplation and reflection. David was a beautiful psalmist, and even one of those psalms is contained in chapter 22 before this particular chapter. And it's interesting what he chooses to speak about at the end, and it's not necessarily what he chose to speak about. It's something that God himself had told him. It says that the Lord had spoke by me and his word was on my tongue. And so this is what the Lord is speaking through David as he pens this poem. And it's significant because as David is about to pass on the kingship to Solomon, and then Solomon on down through the line, we'll find that these words that David penned would have been very significant for his descendants. And had they kept this song close to their heart, it might have kept them from straying too far from the Lord. This is what he says. He says, "He who rules over men righteously, who rules in the fear of God, is as the light of the morning when the sun rises, a morning without clouds, when the tender grass springs out of the earth through sunshine after rain." Beautiful, beautiful language. Perhaps we've all experienced this particular thing where you wake up in the morning, the sun rises, there's no clouds. In other words, the darkness is gone, the storms are gone, but yet the tender grass springs out of the earth. And then it says through the sunshine after the rain. Go outside and you smell the rain and you see it glistening on the beautiful grass below, and it's just shimmering in the sunlight. Just a beautiful picture. And he says that that's what a person who rules over men righteously and who rules in the fear of God is like. In other words, it's something very, very pleasant. And so David includes this in his last psalm. But then it continues on and he says, "Truly is not my house so with God, for he has made an everlasting covenant with me, ordered in all things and secured. For all my salvation and all my desire, will he not indeed make it grow?" And so David is saying that's how my house has been before the Lord. And to prove it, you can just look at the covenant that God made with me. But then there's a word of warning here as you continue on in verse 6 and 7. It says, "But the worthless, every one of them will be thrust away like thorns, because they cannot be taken in hand. But the man who touches them must be armed with iron and the shaft of a spear, and they will be completely burned with fire in their place." And that ends the psalm. Definitely a word of warning to future generations of kings that they should not be worthless. They should not be one who are overly violent and things like that. If they do so, they will end up with fire, be burned with fire in their place. And certainly some of the kings that followed after David would probably fit in this category. But again, this is a psalm that was very important as David is now going to die and leave his rule to his sons and to future generations. As we reflect on this, we can say that yes, you do see a glimpse of this with David's house, and David even recognizes this in the psalm. This beautiful rule that he had, this beautiful house, this dynasty, we could say, of David was very beautiful and pleasant. The Lord blessed it, and so on and so forth. But we're going to find that it wasn't necessarily perfect, though. I think that might be the significance of chapter 24. You'd almost think that chapter 23 would end 2 Samuel with this beautiful last song of David. But it goes on to talk about him, taking the census and this plague that ensues after it and all these horrible things that occur. It's almost as though the prophet who wrote 2 Samuel, and we would include 1 Samuel as well, is probably saying that, yes, David's house was beautiful, it was pleasant, it was blessed by God, but it wasn't perfect. And so it almost leaves us anticipating a house or a rule, or shall we say a king, who would rule this way perfectly and would, in the absolute sense, demonstrate what it means to rule righteously and in the fear of God. And it would certainly be a beautiful, pleasant kingdom. And of course, we would be referring to that of Jesus Christ, the Messiah. As he comes on the scene, he is going to bring about the kingdom of heaven on earth. And his rule would be a rule that is very pleasant and wonderful and beautiful, and one that we all get to enjoy as we connect ourselves to Christ. And even a rule that we can look forward to when the resurrection comes, when Christ rules over the new heavens and the new earth, and we get to rule with him there. We'll really get to see firsthand, in a very direct way, the beautiful and wonderful and pleasant rule of Christ, and be able to experience the blessing that comes from that. But we get a foretaste of that even now, and we get the taste of it now as we submit our lives to Christ, as we see him working in our lives, as we see how much grace and mercy he supplies us, and how much strength he gives us. And we can already see that this rule of Christ is a beautiful, wonderful thing. And I think David's last song captures that beautifully. So these are some things we can reflect on and think about as we do our reading today. With that, guys, I do thank you for watching the video today. Hope you guys have a great day. Love you guys. God bless.